Maya clutched her worn backpack straps as she walked through the metal detectors of Lincoln High School. The security guards barely glanced up from their phones, but Maya felt like every student in the crowded hallway was staring at her. Being the new girl 3 weeks into the semester was hard enough, but being the new girl who had transferred from a private school across town made everything worse. The whispers followed her down the hallway. She caught fragments of conversations as she passed groups of students huddled around their lockers. Something about her uniform looking too expensive. Something about her not belonging here. Maya kept her head down and focused on finding room 205, where her first period chemistry class was supposed to start in 5 minutes. When she finally found the classroom, most of the lab tables were already occupied by pairs of students. Maya hesitated at the doorway, scanning the room for an empty seat. The teacher, Mrs. Henderson, looked up from her desk and gave Maya a tired smile. "You must be Maya," Mrs. Henderson said, consulting her attendance sheet. "There's an open spot at the back table with Sarah." Maya made her way to the back of the room, aware that conversations had stopped as students turned to watch her. Sarah, a petite girl with short black hair and wire-rimmed glasses, looked up from her notebook and offered a genuine smile. "Hi," Sarah said softly. "I'm Sarah, don't worry about them. They'll find something else to gossip about by next week." Maya set her backpack down and pulled out her chemistry textbook. "Thanks, I'm Maya. I guess being the new girl makes me automatically interesting." "Where did you transfer from?" Sarah asked, organizing her lab materials with methodical precision. "Sprep," Maya replied, immediately regretting her honesty when she saw Sarah's eyebrows raise slightly. "Wow, that's like the most expensive private school in the city. What made you switch to Lincoln?" Maya's stomach tightened. How could she explain that her father had lost his job 6 months ago, that they'd had to sell their house and move to a smaller apartment in this neighborhood? That monthly tuition was more than her family's current rent. "My parents thought I'd get a more well-rounded education here," Maya said, which wasn't entirely a lie. Her parents had said that, though they'd said it while sitting at their kitchen table surrounded by unpaid bills. Sarah nodded, either believing the explanation or polite enough not to push further. Mrs. Henderson called for attention, and Maya was grateful for the distraction. The chemistry lesson focused on molecular bonds, and Maya found herself actually enjoying the class. Mrs. Henderson was a good teacher, and the material was challenging but not overwhelming. When the bell rang, Maya felt optimistic about the day ahead. "What do you have next?" Sarah asked as they packed up their materials. "AP History with Mr. "Oh, that's on the second floor. I'll walk you there since my English class is right next door." As they left the chemistry lab, Maya noticed a group of girls near the lockers watching her. The girl in the center was tall with perfectly styled hair and makeup that looked professionally done. She wore the latest designer clothes that Maya recognized from magazines but could no longer afford. "That's Jessica Martinez," Sarah whispered. "She basically runs the social scene here. Her dad owns half the restaurants in town." Jessica stepped directly into Maya's path, flanked by 2 other girls who looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. "So you're the new girl everyone's talking about," Jessica said, looking Maya up and down with calculating eyes. "I heard you came from must be nice to have rich parents." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I just transferred here for academic reasons." Jessica laughed, a sound that wasn't entirely pleasant. "Academic reasons? Right. Well, let me give you some friendly advice about how things work at Lincoln High." One of Jessica's friends, a redhead named Amber, stepped closer. "See, we have a certain social order here, and new girls, especially ones from fancy private schools, need to understand their place." Maya glanced at Sarah, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable. Other students had stopped to watch the confrontation, forming a loose circle around them. "I'm not looking for any trouble," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I just want to get to class." "Oh, but trouble might be looking for you," Jessica said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You see, some of us have worked very hard to maintain our positions here. We can't have some outsider just waltzing in and thinking she can change things." The warning bell rang, and Maya saw an opportunity to escape. "I really need to get to class." She tried to step around Jessica, but the girl moved to block her path again. "We're not finished here," Jessica said. "I think you need to learn some respect." Maya's heart was pounding, but she forced herself to stand. I respect everyone who respects me. Now if you'll excuse me, I don't want to be late. This time when Maya moved to walk away, Jessica didn't stop her physically, but her voice carried clearly down the hallway. Enjoy your first week, Maya, but don't get too comfortable. Sarah hurried to catch up with Maya as they climbed the stairs to the second floor. I'm sorry about that. Jessica can be intense. What's her problem with me? Maya asked, still shaken by the encounter. Honestly, you're pretty, you're smart, and you came from a prestigious school. That threatens her position as the queen bee. Plus, there are rumors that you might try out for the volleyball team, and Jessica's been team captain for 2 years. Maya stopped walking. I haven't even thought about sports. I'm just trying to survive my classes. Well, Jessica doesn't know that, and even if you told her, she probably wouldn't believe you. They reached Maya's history classroom, and Sarah pointed to the door next to it. I'm right here if you need anything. Just try to avoid Jessica and her friends for a while. Maybe things will calm down. Maya thanked Sarah and entered the history classroom, but she couldn't shake the feeling that things were just getting started. As she took a seat in the middle of the room, she noticed several students whispering and glancing in her direction. Word of her confrontation with Jessica had apparently spread quickly. Mr. turned out to be an engaging teacher who made the Revolutionary War sound like an action movie, but Maya struggled to concentrate. She kept thinking about Jessica's threat and wondering what she'd gotten herself into. When lunchtime arrived, Maya felt her anxiety spike again. The cafeteria was a social minefield she wasn't sure how to navigate. Sarah had invited her to sit with her group of friends, which included a few other quiet, academic types who made Maya feel welcome. But even from across the cafeteria, Maya could feel Jessica's eyes on her. The popular girl held court at a large table near the windows, surrounded by what appeared to be half the school's athletic teams and social elite. She's still watching you, observed one of Sarah's friends who was in Maya's calculus class. Just ignore her, Sarah advised. Jessica's all talk. The worst she can do is spread some gossip. Maya wished she could share Sarah's confidence, but something in Jessica's eyes that morning had suggested this was about more than just high school drama. As the weeks passed, Maya tried to keep a low profile. She focused on her studies, which were more challenging than despite what she'd expected. The teachers at Lincoln High were demanding, and many of her classmates were incredibly bright and motivated. She began to make friends beyond Sarah's circle. There was David in her art class, who made her laugh with his dry humor. There was from calculus, who helped her understand complex equations over study sessions in the library. And there was Jordan, a quiet guy from her English class who wrote poetry and wasn't afraid to share thoughtful opinions during class discussions. For a brief period, Maya thought she might actually be settling in successfully. Her grades were strong, she'd joined the debate team, and she was even considering Sarah's suggestion to try out for the school newspaper. But Jessica Martinez hadn't forgotten about her. It started with small things. Maya would find her locker jammed in the mornings, making her late to first period. Her homework assignments would mysteriously disappear from her backpack. Someone spread a rumor that she'd cheated on her chemistry test, though Mrs. Henderson quickly shut that down when she checked Maya's work. Maya tried to ignore the harassment, but it was escalating. One morning, she found her car tires deflated in the parking lot. Another day, someone had written, "Go back to your rich school" on her locker in permanent marker. You need to tell someone, Sarah urged during one of their study sessions. This has gone too far. Tell them what? That Jessica Martinez doesn't like me, that I think she's behind the pranks, but I can't prove it. Maya was frustrated and tired. The constant stress was affecting her sleep and her concentration in class. But she also knew that going to the administration without solid proof might make things even worse. The situation came to a head on a Friday afternoon in late October. Maya had stayed after school to work on a project in the library, and by the time she finished, most of the building was empty. She was walking toward the student parking lot when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see Jessica and 4 of her friends approaching. They'd clearly been waiting for her, and they'd chosen their moment when there were no teachers or other students around. Maya, Jessica said, her voice echoing in the empty hallway. I think it's time we had a real conversation. Maya's heart started racing, but she forced herself to stand still. Running would only make things worse, and she was tired of being afraid. What do you want, Jessica? I want you to understand that you've been given multiple warnings, and you've chosen to ignore them. That was a mistake. The other girls spread out slightly, forming a loose semicircle around Maya. She recognized Amber, the redhead from their first encounter, and three other girls she'd seen around school but didn't know personally. I haven't done anything to you, Maya said, keeping her voice as steady as possible. I've minded my own business and tried to stay out of your way. But that's the problem, Jessica replied, stepping closer. Your very existence here is in my way. You're getting too comfortable, making too many friends. I hear you're thinking about joining the newspaper staff. Maya was surprised that Jessica knew about her conversation with Sarah about the school paper. It meant Jessica was keeping very close tabs on her activities. So what if I am? It's a free school. Jessica laughed coldly. Nothing's free, Maya. Everything has a price, and it's time you paid yours. Without warning, two of Jessica's friends grabbed Maya's arms. She struggled, but they were stronger and had the advantage of surprise. What are you doing? Let me go. Jessica stepped closer, her face inches from Maya's. I'm teaching you a lesson about respect, about knowing your place. They began dragging Maya toward the gymnasium, which would be empty at this time of day. Maya tried to dig her heels in, but the floor was too smooth for her sneakers to get any traction. This is crazy, Jessica. You can't just attack me. Can't I? Who's going to stop me? Who's even going to believe you? Maya's mind raced as they pulled her through the gym doors. The large space was dimly lit and completely deserted. In the center of the room, someone had pulled out one of the folding tables used for assemblies. The realization of what they planned to do hit Maya like a physical blow. They were going to humiliate her, probably film it, and use it to destroy her reputation at school. Her struggles became more desperate, but Jessica's friends held her firmly. Please don't do this, Maya said, adding how scared her voice sounded. Whatever you think I did to you, this isn't the answer. Jessica's expression was cold and calculating. Oh, but it is. See, after today you're going to want to transfer schools again, and this time you won't come back. As they forced Maya closer to the table, she closed her eyes and tried to think of a way out. But with four girls holding her and no one around to help, her options seemed terrifyingly limited. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and Maya could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Whatever was about to happen, she knew it would change everything. Maya felt her feet leave the ground as Jessica's friends lifted her toward the table. Her mind went blank with terror as she realized they actually intended to throw her onto the hard wooden surface. She could see Jessica pulling out her phone, clearly planning to record whatever humiliation they had planned. Wait, Maya gasped, her voice cracking. Jessica, please, think about what you're doing. This isn't just bullying anymore. This is assault. For a split second, Jessica hesitated. Maya saw uncertainty flicker across her face, as if the reality of the situation was finally sinking in. But then one of her friends, a girl Maya didn't recognize, spoke up. Don't listen to her, Jess. She's just trying to save herself. Remember what she did to you. Maya was confused. What I did to you? I've never done anything to you. I barely know you. Jessica's expression hardened again. You don't even remember, do you? Figures, rich girls like you never think about how your actions affect other people. I seriously don't know what you're talking about. My cousin, she applied this last year for their scholarship program. She was perfect for it, straight A's, volunteer work, amazing essay. But guess who got the scholarship instead? Maya's heart sank as understanding dawned. Jessica, I didn't know about your cousin. I didn't even know about any other applicants. The school just told me I'd qualified for financial aid. Financial aid, Jessica laughed bitterly. Right, more like charity for spoiled rich kids whose parents got into trouble. Maya felt a surge of anger override her fear. My family lost everything when my dad's company went under. We had to sell our house, and my parents are working 2 jobs each just to pay rent. I got that scholarship because my grades earned it, not because I'm spoiled. The honesty in Maya's voice seemed to affect some of Jessica's friends. The girl holding Maya's left arm loosened her grip slightly. She's lying, the girl Maya didn't recognize insisted. Jess, remember how cried for weeks? She had to stay at the public school, and now she can't get into the college program she wanted. Jessica's jaw tightened. Because of people like her, taking opportunities away from kids who really need them. I really needed it too, Maya protested. Do you think I wanted to leave my friends? Do you think I enjoyed having to start over somewhere new? My family is struggling just as much as anyone else's." Maya could see doubt creeping into the faces of some of Jessica's friends, but they were too far into this situation to back down easily. The adrenaline and group mentality had taken over. "Enough talking," Jessica said, raising her phone. "Let's just get this over with." Maya closed her eyes and braced herself, but suddenly she heard a loud bang as the gymnasium doors flew open. What the hell is going on here? Maya's eyes snapped open to see Mr. Williams, the school's head custodian, standing in the doorway. Behind him was Coach Martinez, ironically, Jessica's own volleyball coach. The girls holding Maya immediately let go, and she stumbled but managed to stay on her feet. Jessica quickly tried to hide her phone behind her back. "Coach Martinez, Mr. Williams," Jessica said, her voice artificially bright. "We were just helping Maya with something." Mr. Williams, a large man in his 50s who'd worked at the school for over 20 years, wasn't buying it. "Helping her? It looked like you were about to throw that girl onto a table." Coach Martinez stepped further into the gym, her expression stern. "Jessica Martinez, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at volleyball practice right now." Maya saw Jessica's face go pale at the mention of practice. Missing practice without permission was grounds for suspension from the team. "Coach, I can explain." "You can explain to Principal Davis," Coach Martinez said firmly. "All of you, Mr. Williams, please escort these girls to the office while I help Maya." As Mr. Williams began herding Jessica and her friends toward the door, Jessica shot Maya a look that promised this wasn't over. But Maya was too shaken to care about future threats. Her entire body was trembling from the adrenaline and fear. Coach Martinez approached Maya carefully, as if she were a frightened animal. "Are you hurt, sweetheart?" Maya shook her head, though she wasn't entirely sure. Her arms ached where the girls had grabbed her, and she felt dizzy from the rush of emotions. "What exactly happened here?" the coach asked gently. Maya took a deep breath and tried to organize her thoughts. "Jessica and her friends have been harassing me for weeks. Today they cornered me and dragged me in here. They were going to. I don't know exactly what they planned to do, but they wanted to humiliate me and film it." Coach Martinez's expression grew darker. "How long has this been going on?" "Since my first day. Jessica warned me to know my place, and when I didn't transfer schools or become invisible, things escalated." "Why didn't you report this sooner?" Maya felt tears stinging her eyes. "I didn't have proof, and I hoped it would just stop if I ignored it." Coach Martinez helped Maya sit down on the edge of the table that had been intended for her humiliation. "Sweetheart, ignoring bullies never makes them stop. It usually makes them bolder." "I know that now," Maya whispered. Coach Martinez sat down beside her. "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest. Did Jessica or anyone else ever touch you inappropriately or threaten you with physical harm before today?" Maya thought back over the past weeks. "They grabbed me today, obviously, and there was one time when Amber, one of Jessica's friends, shoved me in the hallway. But mostly it was psychological, the locker jamming, missing homework, spreading rumors." "That's still harassment, Maya. And what happened today was assault, even if they didn't actually hurt you." Maya nodded, finally understanding the gravity of what had almost occurred. If Mr. Williams and Coach Martinez hadn't arrived when they did, she might have been seriously injured, and the humiliation would have followed her for the rest of high school. "What happens now?" Maya asked. "Now we go to Principal Davis's office, and you tell him exactly what you told me. Then we call your parents." Maya's stomach dropped. She'd been trying so hard not to worry her parents with school problems when they were already stressed about money and work. "Do we have to call them? They're dealing with enough right now." Coach Martinez's expression softened. "Maya, they need to know. As parents, they have a right to know that their daughter was attacked at school, and honestly, they'll probably want to be your advocates in whatever disciplinary action follows." As they walked toward the principal's office, Maya's mind was spinning. She wondered what would happen to Jessica and her friends. She wondered if this would make her situation at school better or worse. Most of all, she wondered if she'd ever feel safe at Lincoln High again. Principal Davis was a tall, serious man who listened to Maya's account without interruption. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed heavily. "Miss, first let me say how sorry I am that this situation was allowed to escalate to this point. If you had come to us earlier, we might have been able to prevent today's incident." "I didn't think anyone would believe me," Maya said quietly. "Well, given that 2 staff members witnessed the assault, there's no question about what happened today. The question now is what to do about it." Principal Davis called Maya's parents, and while they waited for them to arrive, he explained the school's disciplinary process. Jessica and her friends were already being interviewed separately, and their parents had been as well. When Maya's mother arrived 30 minutes later, she was visibly shaken. Maria was a small woman who worked as a night shift nurse at the local hospital. She'd clearly come straight from sleep after working all night. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" her mother asked, immediately checking Maya over for injuries. "I'm okay, Mom, scared but okay." Maria turned to Principal Davis with fire in her eyes. "How did this happen? How do you allow students to attack each other in your school?" Principal Davis held up his hands. "Mrs., I understand your anger and you have every right to be upset. What happened today was completely unacceptable, and we're taking it very seriously." Maya's father arrived a few minutes later, having left work early. Carlos was a quiet man who worked in construction, and Maya could see the worry and anger warring in his expression. "Tell me what happened," he said simply. Maya recounted the story again for her parents, watching their faces grow increasingly grim. When she finished, her mother was crying quietly, and her father's hands were clenched into fists. "These girls plan to assault our daughter and film it," Carlos said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Yes, sir," Principal Davis confirmed. "And that's exactly how we're treating it. This isn't a simple case of teenage drama or bullying. This was a planned attack." "What are you doing about it?" Maria demanded. "Jessica Martinez and her 4 accomplices are suspended pending a full investigation. They'll each face disciplinary hearings with the school board. Depending on the board's decision, they could face expulsion." Maya felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Justice was being served, but she worried about the backlash when Jessica and her friends returned to school. "What about Maya's safety when they come back?" her father asked, echoing her thoughts. "If any of them are allowed to return, it will be with strict conditions. They'll be forbidden from having any contact with Maya, and any violation of that order will result in immediate expulsion and possible legal charges." Maya's mother wasn't satisfied. "And how will you enforce that? Will you have security guards following Maya around?" Principal Davis admitted that the school's resources were limited, but he assured them that all the teachers and staff would be aware of the situation. After her parents left to file a police report, Maya returned to her classes for the final period of the day. Word of the incident had spread quickly through the school, and Maya found herself the center of attention again, but this time, the attention felt different. Students who had never spoken to her before approached to express support. Several girls shared their own stories of being intimidated by Jessica's clique. Maya realized that she wasn't the only victim. She was just the first one to have adult witnesses to back up her claims. Sarah found her at her locker after the final bell. "Maya, I heard what happened. Are you okay?" "I think so," Maya said, though she still felt shaky. "How did you hear about it?" "Are you kidding? It's all anyone's talking about. Jessica Martinez getting arrested at school? That's like front-page news around here." Maya was shocked. "Arrested?" "The police came and took her and 2 of the other girls away in handcuffs about an hour ago. I guess when your parents pressed charges, they had to act fast." Maya felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief that Jessica wouldn't be back to school anytime soon. Guilt that her actions had led to Jessica's arrest, and worry about what this meant for her future at Lincoln High. As Maya drove home that afternoon, she reflected on how much her life had changed in just a few hours. The morning had started with her feeling powerless and afraid. Now, she felt like she'd reclaimed some control over her situation. But she also knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The disciplinary hearings, potential legal proceedings, and social fallout at school would test her resolve in ways she couldn't yet imagine. When she arrived home, her parents were waiting with serious expressions. Her father gestured for her to sit down at the kitchen table. "Your mother and I have been talking," he said. "We want to know if you'd prefer to transfer to a different school. We could look into the other public schools in the district, or maybe find a way to afford private school again." Maya considered the offer. Part of her wanted to run away from Lincoln High and start fresh somewhere else. But another part of her, a stronger part, refused to be driven away by bullies. "No," she said firmly. "I like my teachers here and I've made good friends. I'm not going to let Jessica Martinez chase me away from my education." Her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Are you sure? It might be difficult for a while." "I'm sure. Besides, if I run away now, what message does that send to the next student Jessica decides to target?" Her father smiled proudly. "That's my brave girl, but if things get too difficult, you promise to tell us immediately." "I promise." That night, Maya lay in bed thinking about courage. She'd always thought courage meant not being afraid. But today, she'd learned that real courage meant being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Maya felt ready to face them. She'd found her voice, and she wasn't planning to stay quiet anymore. The next Monday morning felt surreal to Maya as she walked through the hallways of Lincoln High. Students parted in front of her like she was some kind of celebrity, some offering supportive smiles while others stared with curiosity. The absence of Jessica Martinez and her inner circle was palpable. Their usual table near the windows in the cafeteria sat empty, and the social dynamics of the school seemed to have shifted overnight. Maya's first period chemistry class felt almost normal until Mrs. Henderson asked her to stay after the bell rang. "Maya, I wanted to check on how you're doing," the teacher said kindly. "I heard about what happened on Friday." "I'm okay, Mrs. Henderson. A little nervous about the attention, but okay." Mrs. Henderson nodded thoughtfully. "I also wanted you to know that several teachers have come forward with their own observations about Jessica's behavior toward you and other students. We should have acted sooner." Maya was surprised. Other teachers noticed. Harassment rarely happens in complete isolation. Looking back, there were signs we should have picked up on. The important thing now is making sure you feel safe and supported here. As Maya made her way to her second period class, she was intercepted by a girl she recognized but had never spoken to. The girl was tall and athletic, with short brown hair and a confident bearing. "Hey, Maya, I'm Lisa, Sarah's older sister. I'm a senior." Maya remembered Sarah mentioning her sister was on the varsity basketball team. "Hi, Lisa." "I wanted to thank you," Lisa said, lowering her voice as they walked. "Thank me for what?" "For standing up to Jessica. You probably don't know this, but she's been terrorizing for years. Most people were too afraid to report her because she's smart about not leaving evidence, and her dad donates a lot of money to the school." Maya felt a chill. Her dad donates money. "Yeah, he's on the school board too. That's why Jessica thought she was untouchable. But what she did to you was so blatant that even her dad can't protect her this time." This information made Maya understand why Jessica had been so confident in her harassment campaign. It also explained why some teachers might have been hesitant to act on subtle behavioral observations. "There's something else," Lisa continued. "A bunch of us are planning to speak at the disciplinary hearing. We want to make sure the school board understands that Friday wasn't an isolated incident." Maya stopped walking. "You do that?" "Maya, you broke the spell. For 2 years, Jessica has ruled this school through fear and intimidation. Younger students were afraid to join activities she was involved in. People changed their schedules to avoid her classes. She created a toxic environment, and you're the first person who refused to be driven away." The weight of responsibility Maya felt was overwhelming. She'd just been trying to survive high school, not become some kind of symbol of resistance against bullying. Throughout the day, more students approached Maya with similar stories. A sophomore named Alex told her how Jessica had spread rumors about him being gay when he'd turned down one of her friends for a date. A junior named described how Jessica had sabotaged her campaign for student council president by vandalizing her posters and spreading false information about her platform. By lunchtime, Maya felt emotionally drained from hearing story after story of Jessica's cruelty. She found Sarah and their usual group of friends at their table in the cafeteria. "How are you holding up?" Sarah asked with concern. "It's overwhelming," Maya admitted. "I had no idea so many people had problems with Jessica." One of Sarah's friends leaned forward. "The thing is, she was careful. She never targeted anyone who had power or influence. She went after kids she thought couldn't fight back. Until she picked the wrong target, added the girl from Maya's calculus class. Maya appreciated their support, but she still felt uneasy about being seen as some kind of hero. I didn't do anything special. I just got caught in a situation where adults finally witnessed what was happening. But you could have transferred schools when the harassment started, pointed out. You could have kept your head down and tried to be invisible. Instead, you stood your ground. David, her friend from art class, had been quiet throughout the conversation. Finally, he spoke up. Maya, can I ask you something personal? She nodded. Why didn't you fight back earlier? I mean verbally fight back. You're obviously smart and articulate. You could have destroyed Jessica in a war of words. Maya considered the question carefully. Because I didn't want to become like her. My parents raised me to believe that cruelty is never the answer, even when someone is cruel to you first. But you reported her to the administration in the end, pointed out. That's different. Reporting someone's criminal behavior isn't cruelty. It's protecting yourself and others. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Coach Martinez, who approached their table with a serious expression. Maya, could I speak with you privately for a moment? Maya followed the coach to a quiet corner of the cafeteria, her heart racing with worry about what new development might have occurred. I wanted to update you on the situation, Coach Martinez said. Jessica's disciplinary hearing has been scheduled for Wednesday afternoon. The school board will make decisions about her future enrollment at Lincoln High. What about the other girls? They'll have separate hearings throughout the week. The girl who wasn't a Lincoln High student, she was visiting from High, will face disciplinary action at her own school. Maya was surprised. One of them didn't even go to school here. Apparently, she's a friend of Jessica's from outside school, which actually makes this case more serious because it shows premeditation. Jessica recruited help specifically to intimidate you. This revelation made Maya feel both vindicated and more unsettled. The scope of Jessica's planning was more extensive than she'd realized. There's something else, Coach Martinez continued. Your parents mentioned that you might want to speak at the hearing. You should know that's completely optional. You've already given your statement to the administration and the police. Maya had been dreading this possibility. The thought of facing Jessica again, even in a formal setting with adults present, made her stomach churn. What would I need to say? Just the truth about your experiences. But Maya, I need you to understand that Jessica's father is likely to bring a lawyer. This could get intense. The idea that Jessica's family was treating this as a legal battle rather than a disciplinary matter was intimidating. Maya wondered if her own family should consider getting legal representation. Can I think about it? Of course, but if you decide to speak, let us know by tomorrow morning so we can prepare properly. That evening, Maya discussed the hearing with her parents over dinner. Her father was strongly in favor of her testifying. This is your chance to make sure Jessica faces real consequences for her actions. If you don't speak up, she might get a slap on the wrist and be back to terrorizing other students next semester. Her mother was more cautious. But what if this makes things worse for Maya? What if Jessica's friends retaliate? Maya had been thinking about this dilemma all afternoon. Mom, Coach Martinez said other students want to testify too. If we all speak up together, it's harder for anyone to retaliate against all of us. Are you sure you're strong enough for this, Maya? Facing Jessica again could be traumatic. Maya thought about all the students who had approached her that day, sharing their stories of intimidation and fear. She thought about Jessica's confidence that her family's money and influence would protect her from consequences. I think I have to do it, she said finally. Not just for me, but for everyone else she's hurt. Her father reached across the table and squeezed her hand. We'll be there with you. You won't face this alone. The next day, Maya informed Coach Martinez that she would testify at the hearing. By Tuesday afternoon, word had spread through the school that several students planned to speak against Jessica. The atmosphere was tense, with clear divisions forming between Jessica's remaining supporters and those who backed Maya. Maya tried to focus on her studies, but found it difficult to concentrate. Her teachers were understanding and offered extensions on assignments, but Maya didn't want her education to suffer because of the drama. On Wednesday morning, Maya dressed carefully in a conservative navy blue dress her mother had bought for her graduation ceremony. She wanted to look respectful and mature for the hearing. The disciplinary hearing was held in the school board's conference room, a formal space with a long table where 5 board members sat. Jessica was present with her parents and a lawyer, as Coach Martinez had predicted. Maya was struck by how small and young Jessica looked in the formal setting, stripped of her usual confidence and social power. Maya's parents sat behind her, along with Coach Martinez and Principal Davis. On the other side of the room, Jessica's family presented a united front of expensive clothes and stern expressions. The hearing began with Principal Davis presenting the school's findings. He described the pattern of harassment Maya had endured and the specific events of the previous Friday. Jessica's lawyer attempted to minimize the incidents, characterizing them as typical teenage social conflicts rather than systematic bullying. When it was time for student testimony, Maya was the third person to speak. The students who went before her, Lisa, and a junior named Tyler who had his own history with Jessica, painted a clear picture of long-term intimidation. When Maya's turn came, she stood slowly and approached the microphone. Jessica stared at her with an unreadable expression. "My name is Maya," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I transferred to Lincoln High 7 weeks ago when my family's financial situation changed. I had no intention of causing problems or disrupting the social order." She went on to describe her experiences, from the first confrontational meeting with Jessica through the escalating harassment, and finally to the assault in the gymnasium. She spoke calmly and factually, avoiding emotional language or accusations beyond what she could prove. "I'm not asking for revenge," Maya concluded. "I'm asking for accountability. What happened to me was wrong, and if there are no consequences, it will happen to someone else." Jessica's lawyer cross-examined Maya, trying to suggest that she had somehow provoked the harassment or exaggerated the incidents. But Maya's calm, consistent responses and the corroborating testimony from other students made these arguments ineffective. When Jessica herself, she expressed regret for her actions, but insisted that Maya had misunderstood her intentions. She claimed the gymnasium incident was meant to be a prank that got out of hand. "I never meant for anyone to get hurt," Jessica said, tears streaming down her face. "Maya seemed so confident and perfect, I guess I felt threatened by her success." Maya felt a complicated mixture of emotions watching Jessica cry. Part of her felt vindicated that Jessica was finally facing consequences, but another part of her felt sad that the situation had escalated to this point. The school board deliberated for 2 hours before reaching their decision. Jessica Martinez was expelled from Lincoln High School. 2 of her accomplices received semester-long suspensions, while the other 2 received month-long suspensions and mandatory counseling. As the families filed out of the conference room, Jessica's father approached Maya's parents. "I hope you're satisfied," he said coldly. "You've destroyed my daughter's future over a simple misunderstanding." Maya's father stepped protectively in front of his family. "Your daughter destroyed her own future when she chose to assault mine. Maybe you should have taught her that actions have consequences." Maya watched the exchange with mixed feelings. She felt relief that the ordeal was over, but also sadness about the larger tragedy of how Jessica's unchecked behavior had ultimately led to her downfall. Over the following weeks, life at Lincoln High gradually returned to normal. Without Jessica's intimidating presence, the social atmosphere became more relaxed and inclusive. Students who had been afraid to participate in activities began joining clubs and trying out for teams. Maya found herself in an unexpected position of influence. Younger students sought her advice about dealing with bullying, and teachers consulted her about creating anti-harassment policies. She used this platform carefully, always emphasizing the importance of reporting problems to adults rather than suffering in silence. Sarah's prediction proved correct by Thanksgiving. Maya's confrontation with Jessica had become just another piece of school history. New dramas and relationships had taken center stage in the daily gossip. Maya's grades remained strong, and she did eventually join the school newspaper, where she wrote thoughtful articles about social issues and student life. Her experience with Jessica had given her insight into power dynamics and institutional responses that made her a compelling writer. More importantly, Maya discovered that standing up for herself had changed her in fundamental ways. She felt more confident in expressing her opinions, more willing to take leadership roles, and less afraid of social conflict when principles were at stake. One spring afternoon, as Maya was leaving debate team practice, she encountered Martinez in the parking lot. Was Jessica's cousin, the girl who had lost the scholarship to Maya. Maya's first instinct was to avoid the conversation, but approached her directly. "Maya, can I talk to you for a minute?" Maya nodded cautiously. "I wanted to apologize," said, "for what Jessica did to you, and I wanted you to know that I never asked her to target you because of the scholarship." "I figured that," Maya replied. "Your cousin's actions were her own choice." Looked down at her feet. "I was angry about not getting the scholarship, but after hearing what happened to you and learning about your family's situation, I realized we weren't that different. We were both just kids trying to get a good education." Maya felt a wave of empathy for, "Are you happy at your school now?" "Yeah, actually. I'm doing well in the college prep program, and I think I'll get into a good university even without the private school advantage. Sometimes things work out the way they're supposed to." As they parted ways, Maya reflected on how many people had been affected by the scholarship decision and its aftermath. Jessica's twisted response to her cousin's disappointment had created a chain of pain that touched multiple lives. But Maya also realized that good things had come from the experience. She'd learned to advocate for herself, formed meaningful friendships, and found her voice as a writer and leader. The girl who had walked nervously into Lincoln High as the scared new student had grown into someone who could face challenges with confidence and grace. Looking back, Maya understood that her confrontation with Jessica Martinez had been about more than just high school drama. It had been about justice, courage, and the power of speaking truth even when it's difficult. As she drove home that evening, Maya felt grateful for the strength she'd discovered within herself, and hopeful about the positive changes that could happen when people refused to accept cruelty as normal. The experience had taught her that sometimes the most important battles aren't the ones you choose, but the ones that choose you. And when those moments come, the only real choice is whether to stand up or stand down. Maya had learned to stand up, and that lesson would serve her well for the rest of her life.